Hey everybody, Kirk Williams here, Live Inspired. Um, on our Live Inspired page, we are super excited about today. Been talking about it a little bit, and this is our topic today. It's been in the news for a long time. Well, not for a long time. Well, actually, it has been in the news for a long time. Um, but it has really risen to a epic, head, I would say, with George Floyd and his untimely death and the situation with the police officer and all those things. And now we have these different protests happening around and all these different things. Protests, we have some riots and loots and all these kinds of things that's happening. But I believe we've had a awakening of America and all of America about what has been happening, and specifically we'll be talking about the happening in the Black community with predominantly Black men, but we've had some Black young ladies, other ethnicities have had plenty of issues, but today is a special day for us here on Live Inspired because I get to welcome my friend, my teammate, my brother, Mark Faulx to the main stage, and I'm very excited that he's going to be here. He's a former, so that's why I have my IUP basketball hat on. We both played together at IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, for those that don't know what IUP stands for. And Mark really wanted to have this conversation, and it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I think it's one that needs to be had. And this is what we're going to be doing on part of the Live Inspired shows. We'll be dedicating some of this to this topic, but others. But I really thank Mark for chiming in and getting in touch with me and wanting to come on and share, the inspiration behind him wanting to talk about it and what happened and all those. So without further ado, Mark, welcome to the stage. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kirk. This is really great to be with you.
Yeah. So a little bit of background, again, I mentioned IUP basketball. Mark and I played on IUP teams in the 90s, mid 90s, I would say. And so we're a little old. Yeah. We are a little old, but Mark was a tough guy. He was tough. He fought. So we played the same position. And Mark fought me all the time. He was always on me, man. He was a strong guy. He was always there. But I just had a great fond memories of the time that we played at IUP, Mark. I mean, it was phenomenal for me. What about for you?
Yeah, it was a magical time. And I mean, that's sort of what brings me here with you is such a important time in my life. And when I look back on it, I don't know if I learned more from my classes or just the experiences that we had with one another. The social aspect of our existence there really impacted me quite a bit. And I often reflect upon how that shows up in many of the things that I do today.
Phenomenal. Well, I agree with you 100%. We had a special team. For those that don't know, when we were playing, one of the years, actually my first year when I was there, I came in as a junior, and we had a phenomenal team, phenomenal season. We went 29-2 that year, ranked #1 in the nation the entire year, Division II basketball, and just kind of slip of the tongue, slip of the ankle, whatever you want to call it. We just had one little slip up in the Final Four, Division II Final Four, and ended up losing the game in the semifinals. And but regardless of that, I think what we did so well as a team is we actually bonded. We actually had friendships. We liked each other, and also because of that, we competed hard. So we competed hard. We played hard with each other. We were friends. We came out of it, and to this day, 25 years later,
yeah.
we can still sit down and have these kind of conversations. So I think it was a phenomenal time.
It sure was.
Yeah. So that brings us to the topic of today. You kind of alluded to it. You mentioned it. And but before we even jump in there, I want to go back, and talk a little bit about your background and where you came from and how we get to this conversation today, because you grew up obviously a little bit different than I did, and but it kind of brings us to where we are. So tell us just a little bit about your background and how we end up here. How did you get inspired to be here based on where you came from?
Yeah, that's a really good question, or to focus the conversation. Looking at our time, it's nice to think about before, during, and after. And the topic being race and racism. My existence prior to college was mostly very white. There was very little diversity in the high school and the elementary school that I went to. And so, I came into college I was not culturally aware. I mean, basketball afforded me the opportunity to share spaces with different people. However, I didn't have the opportunity to really be with people that had different culture than me, even different skin than me.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me to be with you guys, I look at that as like just a really pivotal point in my development, being a more culturally aware person. And I just, taking that into college, and our conversations last night, some of the things that I didn't even know that you went through as a college student. And I guess just really how much I learned being with you guys, and how much I seek to have it in my life today because of how valuable it was for me.
Sure. That's really, really cool. Really interesting that you bring up and that we talked about where you grew up, how you grew up, and being in spaces. I think that's really interesting that you bring that up, because it's not like you didn't know what a Black person looked like.
No, for sure.
But it wasn't that you were into I don't want to say integrated, but you weren't really in that environment for long periods of time that you can really understand and know and conversate over periods of time. I think that's kind of
and to like share meals or be in each other's apartments, or like really experience what life was presenting. We talked last night. The one thing I'm most thankful for is that in my household there was an emphasis on loving kindness, and that light kind of shined through, and it's the light that I'm most thankful for. But there were many influences along the way. I can think back over time of people I was around, the things that I was hearing and seeing, and all of that to me was like I think of all these downloads we do and these installations of our phones, and like I've had this stuff that's in me. Sometimes I don't even know that now I become more aware of, and I kind of want to get it out. I want to weed the garden to make sure that I'm the person that I want to be, to teach my kids and take care of our house.
Sure. Well, that's great, and I'm glad that this is a step, because if any of you guys know me, if you know Mark, this is kind of something that we probably wouldn't choose to do. Again, I'm hosting this, and it's something that I really wouldn't necessarily choose to do. And knowing Mark, I know that this is his number one thing that he would do in life is have these kind of conversations on this kind of platform for the world to see forever. You know what I mean? But it's important enough to Mark, it's important enough to me that we talk. And the great thing I think about being able to do this with this particular conversation on race and racism and things that we've experienced in our past is that we can do it in this safe space because we have a relationship, because we went through some wars together, because we consider ourselves friends, brothers, teammates for life. So I think it's a great space to be in with that. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Oh, I agree. And that you couldn't have said it better. Even taping this and the way things are stored on technology nowadays, it does make you feel a bit uncomfortable. But I really believe I was moved, and this is just such an important time. I said last night, I don't think anybody should be the same person that they were prior to this now. I just feel like I really want to change. I want to be better so that I can talk about this with I'm a teacher, I'm a basketball coach, I'm a parent, I'm a friend, I'm a family member. I want to practice talking about this so that I can help. I just really want to help. I guess I'm carving out our roles. We had, when you said that I was rough, physical in practices, my role was to get you ready to play. And I didn't realize that then, but you were the guy, and I was the guy that had to get you ready. So I'm just trying to carve out my role, be a good teammate.
Fantastic, man. You could have said that better, and you definitely did, and that's why we ended up where we were. Every team has roles, and there's some teams that have somebody that has to play the role of being like the starter, or we're talking about basketball right now. Then you have someone that has the role to prepare them to get ready to go out and beat the other team. And you did your role phenomenally, and I appreciate that because you pushed me, and that was good. Every day in practice, you pushed me. So now, as we transition, as we are adults, we're grown men, we're having families, and we have this situation where, racism has really come to a head in our country. We have the opportunity to then create our roles and start pushing and supporting each other in what we're doing. So with that said, I want to jump right in and say, you know what, how did the George Floyd situation impact you? How did it influence you so much that we're sitting here today?
That's, just watching it, you and I talked about this last night. I knew what happened, and I was sort of scared to watch it.
Yeah.
And as I watched it, I was more and more scared of watching someone's life pass in front of me. I was concerned about trauma. And then, watching facial expressions and hearing words that forever have changed me. I played outside. I played with my kids the other day, and we were playing with cold water. And when my son hit me with the hose, I yelled, "I can't breathe." And I froze because those words are forever carved in my brain as something someone said in such a situation. And it's disturbing and angry and sad, all kinds of emotions I can't even describe.
Wow.
How about you?
Well, for me, man, I'll put it this way. It was something that was different, but similar or the same. So, and what I mean by that, Mark, is, being a Black man, our culture has experienced this type of thing before. You know what I mean? So we just had Arbery that was shot by two guys, unarmed, just going through the neighborhood. Trayvon Martin just, had a hood on. He's all killed, has nothing with him. Breonna Taylor, she's at home in her bedroom and she gets shot and killed, and they went to the wrong house. And those just are three stories that we've seen this over and over and over again in our community. And that's what I mean by familiar or similar. We've kind of seen this happen with, white individuals and Black individuals. And for some reason, the Black ones end up dead. So we've seen this. I think the thing that was so different for me, and I think it was different for most of us that watched that, is a couple of things. Number one, the way the camera was, it was right on Floyd. So there was no mistaking what was happening. There was no mistaking. You can actually see him up front and close, his face. You can see it. It's not a shadowy figure down the street. It's not what we kind of heard about. No, you can actually see this happening right in front of your eyes, just like you mentioned. And then, so that's one dynamic. The other dynamic is you can see the facial expressions, the body language of the officer that's doing this. And with the cries from the people saying, hey, get off of him, he can't breathe, all these things. And with Floyd himself saying, hey, I can't breathe, you hear that. So you get all these things. You see his face, you see George's face, you hear everything, and it makes you feel like you are right there. I think we all felt like we were right there. And I think that's the difference, that because we can actually feel like we are there and see everything happening, and there's no mistake about, did he do something wrong in that moment? No. Did the officer do something wrong? Yes. You can see it clear as day. I think that's what the difference is, for me. That's what I would say.
And last night you had emphasized the hand in the pocket, and I had not noticed that, so I kind of forced myself to go back and look at it again today, and it's definitely apparent that the body language and the hands, and even I noticed that somebody else in the area had hands in the pockets, and that just makes you feel like there was no urgency for people around it, and that's just really disturbing and traumatic and sad and awful.
Yeah, awful. I agree with you 100%. And I think that's why we're having this conversation right now. One of thousands of conversations that's happening all over the world. But we are here and having this conversation, and we know each other, but we've never had a talk like this, right? We played, we ate dinner together, we went on bus rides, we stayed in hotels, we did all these things together, but we've never had a conversation. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we haven't had that?
Well, that's a good question, Kirk. I have thought about that. I wish we had. I don't know that I was mature enough at that time in my life. I felt like I was always just either in the moment or catching up. And I wish I had a little more wherewithal to sit down and really get to know everybody a little better, because I do miss it. And I'd like just seeing everybody this year at IUP. I went home and I told my wife, I said, I don't know that I have felt like that in a long, long time. Like super comfortable, but also like so excited. Yeah. And it just went so fast. And I went home with like this sadness that I don't know how many times more we'll see each other. And I kind of started texting you guys like, we got to make it happen again. I need to see you. And I'm glad we're doing this. I think this strengthens our connection. So this is just another way to stay in touch.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. And I would also say that for us, I just don't think that it was something that was in the forefront in college. And I speak for myself. I was about business as far as, we have a team. I want to play. I want to get my degree. I embrace the relationships. I embrace the friendships to this day. But the issues that we dealt with, when we were in college, as far as racial, tension and things like that, it wasn't something in my mind either. It was just that's just what life is for me. So, I don't think that, being immature is I wouldn't say necessarily that it was because we were immature. I think we were doing life. Our environments dictated what we would do, and our passions led us to certain things, and it wasn't a bad thing that we didn't have the conversation. No. We just didn't have it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even in the time where I believe during that time we had the O.J. Simpson thing that was happening too, and even in that time, it still wasn't as impactful
as our locker room. we didn't talk about that. I don't remember, and that was a big thing. I don't remember us discussing that trial or all that was going on there. Do you?
No, we didn't. It wasn't, again, it wasn't bad. I mean, we had some conversation, but it wasn't so much that it changed our lives in the sense that, there was any kind of racial tension, any kind of issue. It just, it was an incident that happened. We looked at it, we watched it, it was going on, but we had other things that we were dealing with, we were worried about or doing. But this is different. And I think for us, again, seeing the facial expressions, seeing the white cop and the black person on the ground, being able to see all of that happening, body language, all of that, you can see that. The OJ thing, OJ was driving in his SUV in his Bronco, right? We didn't really see him. OJ was a celebrity. He was all these different things. He was kind of over there, So this is different. And I wanted to, ask you, how are you dealing with it now? What's your response to it? I know it's an awful thing, but how are you dealing with it in your life now? How is life different? Conversation with your family. I know you mentioned a basketball coach. What's different for you as an individual, and then how did you transition that, or talk to that, or if you have talked to your family about what's going on?
Yeah, I think what I observed when it first happened, there was like this explosion of like grief that I could feel, and I could never even remotely feel all of the pain that Black people have endured. Mm-hmm. But like I could see I would look on Facebook, and these people that I care about, I could just see all the pain and at that point, I just started thinking, I want to help the people that I love to feel better. And I was starting to feel like panicky, and I didn't know what to do. And my wife and I decided we were going to go march in this Pittsburgh march for Black Lives Matters. And so she took the kids up, and I had to finish some schoolwork. And then I walked up she dropped me off by myself. And that was a really empathic experience for me, to be afraid, which I was. And I needed to feel that, because I needed to feel what it's like to be afraid. I was worried about getting COVID.
Sure.
And I needed to feel that, because, that's a reality that I have a privileged life. That safety and that infection to COVID is different for me. And then to start marching and have to do things like raising my hands up in the air and saying, "Don't shoot," and to say all of their names, I started to bawl. And like I started to really, I was under a mask, and I was just thinking, why is this all coming out now? Like this should have come out the moment I saw, and I started to like question my empathy, and I wanted to investigate my privilege more. And I guess right now in my house, we're trying to be better at feeling. We're having the discussions that we need to have to try and raise children that are culturally aware and loving kindness and emotionally intelligent, so that they can pass it on to their kids. But also we're trying to make a difference in our daily conversations and the places that we purchase, and just trying to find a way to help, because I think this is a really important time, and we need to sustain our efforts as long as we possibly can. So that's where I am. And sometimes I don't know where I am, but I'm just trying my best to have a role,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I think you are definitely on a great path. And we talked about it last night. So everyone, we did have a pre-conversation before we got on here and jumped on this live one. But, what you're doing, first of all, you are open enough to say, and even acknowledge some type of privilege. You mentioned it. Didn't come from me. You mentioned that. So that means you recognize you recognize that it's there. So that's just, that's great because, it is there. Doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you have to, feel shameful of any of that. At least I don't believe that you need to be ashamed of who you are. God made you who you are. He made me who I am. And this is the life that you need to live, but you're aware. And I think that's what we want everyone to do and to be, is aware. And then after being aware and having empathy, then as a teacher, you began to teach. You began to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to give some of this knowledge to my family. And again, we talked about it last night. I truly believe that that is one thing that will eventually change the world, is if individuals like yourself, like me as well, will invest in the next generation and your kids, knowing that, what, this thing is wrong, and our knowledge, our mind can help us, then do the right things in life. And as you do that, as you build your kids up, they'll build their kids up, they'll build their kids up. And just like we have 400 years of slavery and all kinds of issues in the Black community, starting now, as we build up, it'll turn into a generational thing where we're starting to give, the positive sides of cultural awareness, and we all will definitely be better off in the years to come. So I think you're doing a phenomenal job with that. I think that's the right path that you're doing.
Thanks, Kirk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So with that said, you had a few questions that you wanted to ask me that you mentioned. Am I right? Did you have a few questions?
I jotted down some things that we talked about last night, and some questions, some topics the night before, but I didn't have any specific questions.
Okay. That's my mistake. But I will ask you this, because you did mention that you are a basketball coach. So what do you go by? You go by Coach Mark? You go by Coach Faulx? Coach Faulx? Okay. So I want to bring that up too, because you know what? You coach at Valley, right?
Yes.
And Valley is Valley Vikings. Is that right?
Correct. Good job.
All right.
That.
So I looked that up because guess what? When I was in high school, my high school was the Valley Vikings.
Wow. I did not know that. That is amazing.
Yeah, I was a Valley Viking right here in Vegas. So I thought that was really cool. We're going to have a conversation. But with that, you are a coach, and you coach, is it predominantly Black student athletes?
Our basketball team has been a majority of Black kids. Even though I don't believe that the school is a majority of Black kids, I believe that the basketball team has. And so it's been a really humbling experience for me to pass on some of the things that I've learned and experience new things.
Sure.
I just think of it. I've told you last night, it's like these new spaces that I go into and these lines that I cross. I teach at a predominantly white school, and then I travel across different places to enter a gymnasium with predominantly Black kids. And so it's such an amazing experience, and I have to constantly keep my eyes open and seek to understand. And it's been, the last years at Valley have been some of the best work I've ever done. I've really just been fulfilled by it and really inspired by doing it.
Incredible. So how does this situation change, or how do you pivot from what you were dealing with before this George Floyd situation? How does it now change the conversation, or how do you change your thinking or your approach as a basketball coach that is white, but you are going into an environment as a coach with predominantly Black student athletes?
Yeah, I think that's one of a few reasons that I'm here with you. Is I think that my ability to have conversation with people needs to be better. I feel like I need to. You even said last night something that was that's registered with me. Sometimes you just need to tell people how you feel, and then ask them how it made them feel. And that can get a good conversation going. And I had in my mind this fear that I wouldn't know how to get the conversation going. And that was something I was searching for and found. And now I like that we're just talking so that I can practice and be a better teacher at home and in school and at basketball, and just be able to facilitate conversations that lead to growth and allow people to be connected like we are. And like you said, hopefully make a big difference. So I don't know if I answered the question, but I was trying my best.
Absolutely. Because you talked about how you now will start the conversation, just telling them how this situation made you feel. And I think that's a great way to have this conversation with these young people that are obviously affected by it. We all are, whether we want to believe it or not. Everyone is affected somehow to this situation. The world is, dealing with this whole thing. It's not just COVID, although COVID hasn't gone anywhere, everybody. I know the media shows us just talking about this Black Lives Matter, but COVID is still around there. Yeah. We're still dealing with it, right? But I know I truly feel that your student athletes that you coach are dealing with these things.
Oh, yeah.
And I also believe because you coach them, they look up to you. I don't think I don't know them personally. My gut tells me that they respect you tremendously. That's what my gut tells me. Would you say the same?
I would hope so. I mean, that's certainly something that I reflect back on. I would think that they do, because we've maintained relationships past their time with me. And I feel like at the end of seasons, I can look at them and I can sense a mutual respect. But I also think like that trust has to be earned and maintained. And if I am not credible or I do not connect and care, then I feel like my trust will diminish. So I really want to become more credible and caring so that I can have better connections with the kids that I have an influence on. So another reason why I'm here with you, man.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to share this little thing that you sent me. Now I'm going to show this because I want everyone to see how Mark's kids, listen to this. What was this? So I wanted to share that just as.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. I just wanted you to.
Yeah, everybody needs to see, not only you are passionate about what you do, but guess what? Every one of those kids are jumping around, cheering and excited, and you're their leader. They're following you. And that's what I mean by, do they respect you? Absolutely, 100%. So when you have this conversation with them, their eyes are going to be, and ears are going to be wide open to listen, to hear, and they're going to really appreciate this conversation that you're going to have with them. And if they can cheer and be excited and see you that excited as their coach, then they're definitely going to be able to listen to what you have to say, and really create a tremendous bond with you. It won't be about black and white. That might be the topic of the day, but it's really going to be about how can we grow together as people. And I think that's what you're going to get across when you have this conversation with your young student athletes.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier, that we feel like we're brothers, and I feel like a good team has like a brotherhood. It's like a really tight connection that is earned and developed over time, and you got to be open and honest and caring. So I'm surprised you showed that, man. I just really wanted you to see, because we shared locker rooms that were really excited, and I don't know that you have ever thought of me and being in a a locker room as a coach with kids. And I thought, that's the only video footage I have of a situation like that. So,
well, it's a great
no.
one, man. And congratulations, good job of even
Oh,
jumping
thanks.
into the coaching thing, man, because that's not something that I do. I might train some players, but I
Yeah.
don't do that. That takes a special kind of person. So great job, man. Really excited that you transitioned to that. That's really cool. Really cool to see.
I think what you do is amazing too. All the work that you're doing, I told you, you really do live inspired, and that inspires me. I have always felt that about you. Like you said you didn't know what you were doing in college, but I felt like you did. I felt like you knew exactly what you were doing, and you were really driven and impressed me from the very first time I met you, and you still continue to impress. So thanks. And
I appreciate that, man. Appreciate that so much. So now what do we do next? What's our change? I know we talked about, having empathy. We talked about the shock and awe of this George Floyd situation. We talked about having, uncomfortable conversations and continuing to do that. So that's definitely something that we'll have to do. What else do we need to do to see change happen? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think I want to try and become more involved in like local politics. I have not ever really done my due diligence on like policies and
Sure.
things that like local government has in place that isn't working. I joined my wife is in a book club that deals with policy. I did not join it, but she's been suggesting I do.
Okay.
I have a little difficulty reading some things like that. I tend to read things that really interest me, but this is interesting me now. So
yeah,
I think voting, I want to really educate myself more. Like I told you, I really want to get back and review, not even review, relearn or learn new stuff, history, and just keep investing in any way I can. Those are some things that I think of from the question, but what do you think?
Yeah, well, I agree 100%. Education, I have another, part of my company that's called College Access Group, and the hashtag for that is education is key. So I truly believe education is the key. So we need to educate ourselves with a variety of things. I think one of the things that history teaches us or tells us is that, the winners get to dictate what is talked about, right?
Yeah.
So in history, definitely in our history here in the United States, in America, the white players have really dictated our history, but we have some other history that should be talked about, and it's kind of been lost. So I think going and getting educated on some different things that may not be in our global American history books, but some things that happen to some of the other people and some of their history, how they see things, again, a different perspective definitely helps with us being able to move forward. I also think having more and more of these uncomfortable conversations is important for us to continue that dialogue. Continue having conversations. You said you mentioned wanting to practice and do this more so that you can then do it more, but also help some of the others that are in your life to be able to understand. So doing more conversations like this is definitely going to help with the change, because I believe we're in a great time in history because we are all open enough to listen, and because we can listen, then we might be able to hear what the other person is saying.
Yeah.
Right. So I think those are some great things that we can do: educate ourselves and just have more conversations about it. And then also, like you mentioned, get involved. So whether that's getting involved at the political level, whether that's getting involved with teaching, and whatever it is, if it's getting involved with doing social programs. I know you're a basketball coach, but then there are some others that might want to be involved with helping reform the social welfare systems or different things like that. Even getting involved with the police and finding better ways to have community policing, so that building the relationship with if there's a relationship, then if I know you, I'm not going to really tend to try to harm you first. Yeah. My initial is going to have a conversation and figure out how we can deal with it. I think community policing will have to come back in a strong way in order for us to create change in this, environment of police brutality that we've seen here. But I think those are a couple of things I would say that we can do to start the change. Again, we've had 400 years of Black oppressions in different facets of history. I'm on the, I think that we're going to have, we need to take a couple of years, 100 years to get to where we want to get to, but it starts now. And it starts with conversations. It starts with teaching the next generation cultural awareness and diversity is okay, it's good. And, once we do that, I think we'll start that needle, move the needle to where it needs to be.
Yeah. I hope that, I remember, I think Barack Obama saying that progress is zigzagged. And I often say that to my wife and my kids, you got to be ready for the burst. And I feel like there's a burst right now that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't take so long for there to be a more equal and just. I hope that this wave of whatever is happening, that they press the gas to the pedal to the metal and just keep it going and see what can be done. It makes me sad when you said our kids. I want it for you. I want it for your kids. Yeah. And I just think we need to keep rolling and see what can be done.
Well, if we have more individuals like yourself, Mark, it definitely can happen. I'd love to see that happen, and but it's going to take, and we talked about this again last night, and I'm bold enough, I will say it. I think it takes white men to step up. I don't think it is going to have, the Black community has been, trying to get this message out and out and out. I think it's going to take white men to step up and say,
oh, yeah. I wrote that down, Kirk. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I wrote that down. I thought that was a pivotal moment in our conversation. You emphasized white men must step up, and I couldn't agree more. I thought it was interesting today, we spoke of the Popovich quote of Black people have been shouldering this burden for far too long. It's time for white people to step up. Yeah. And then I saw another quote from him where he said something like he was humbled by all that he did not know, but one thing he did know was that he needed to start speaking up. And I thought, already I see him speaking up and calling people out. And, I just find him to be somebody really interesting. He has this way of being somebody that's credible. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with it. And he's he's an incredible basketball coach, and we all know that. But he does have a way of speaking his mind, and he doesn't mind speaking his mind, and that really brings a lot of credibility to what he says. Yeah. I think it's okay, and I think it's really good what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do.
You do. I would never want to quote somebody that you didn't feel was credible, but I thought we probably felt that he is a credible person to speak about.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Even if you didn't, I didn't feel that way. Hey, you know what?
I would want you to tell me. Yeah.
we're live. So, hey, if it is, we talk about it. That's all we do. We just have a conversation and we talk about it. But I think we definitely can agree that Pop has really stepped into a phenomenal role, not just as a great basketball coach, but as a man, as a leader, a visible leader. And I think that's a type of guy that we need to step in, a white male to say, hey, this is wrong. This is why it's wrong. And this is what we need to do to invoke change for the better, and sustain it. And that's the
Yeah.
only way that we can sustain it, is by having white men step up and do that. And I think we're getting some white men, and one of them is you, my friend.
Yes. Yes. I am with you.
Phenomenal, man. Well, I appreciate you.
Oh,
This was a great conversation. And man, I'd love to have it again, and we can continue the conversation. But thank you for reaching
thank you,
out. Thank
Kirk.
you for having this time with me, man.
I am so appreciative. I love you. And I don't know that I've ever told you that, but I really do. And I would love to do this again. I found this to be extremely valuable, and I can't thank you enough.
Hey, man. Well, I love you too, Mark. You know, you're my brother, you're my
Yes.
teammate, my brother. And I'm glad that we get a chance to have this conversation, get a chance to see each other. Even though you're all the way in Pennsylvania, I'm in Vegas, I'm in Nevada, but we get to do this. This is really cool. But I look forward to the time where we can get back together face to face, shake each other's hand, give each other a hug, and really get to, connect that way again.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Fantastic. Well, that's it, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us here on Live Inspired today. On the main stage, I have my man Mark Faulx with us. And, make sure you take a look at our podcast. We're on Anchor. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on all these different stations. So check out the podcast. We have other great individuals living inspired lives coming on. We're also going to be on YouTube, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're all over the place, and we're trying to just make a positive impact in everyone's lives. And as we always sign out and just say, hey, we want you to be encouraged. We know things are crazy right now in life, but I would just say be encouraged. Things are going to get better, and your best life is yet to be had, and you're in it right now. I also would say stay positive, because, hey, you know what? Life is crazy again, but nothing good comes out of a negative attitude, a negative thought pattern. Always stay positive, live a positive life. And last but not least, we ask you and tell you, really encourage you to live inspired, because if you're inspired, you can inspire the next generation, the next person to be who they were meant to be, and you will actually benefit from that as well. So with that said, Mark, thank you very much for being here. Everyone, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Live Inspired with Kirk Williams. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.